Clean Energy Webinar Series. These webinars have been instrumental in training and empowering the Climate Health Action Team members and PSR members to advocate for a health-protective energy system, one that's based on energy efficiency and sustainable energy such as wind and solar rather than coal or natural gas plants. I'm Pazardasa Regan, Climate Organizer at Physicians for Social Responsibility. The other PSR staff on the webinar tonight is Barb Gottlieb, Director of Environment and Health. Yeah, Barb will be presenting the targeted action for July later in the webinar. Do remember that the webinar is recorded and will be up on the PSR website sometime tomorrow. Before we get started with our speaker, I want to go over some important information. We will be taking questions after our guest speaker has finished presenting. I invite you to raise your hand. You should see a little hand icon on the side of your box, little yellow hand icon. Or let me know if you wish to be called upon by writing in the question section. There's also a little box that says questions. You may write there your question, and at that section of question and answer period, I will call upon you. Also, today's question and answer period will have some time for discussion. So if you wish to be called upon to share your experiences at the state level with the Clean Power Plan implementation, let me know about that in the question box. Do remember, though, that if you are going to be called upon, you do need to be either on the phone or have a microphone capability. So today's webinar is Taking Action in Your State for Clean Power Plan Success. But every webinar that we have, we go over last month's action as an action report. Last month, we asked our folks to write letters to Congress urging support of clean, healthy, and efficient wind energy by making wind production tax credits, PTCs, permanent and opposing bills eliminating PTC from the tax code. I am very happy to report that over 200 Climate Health Action Team members sent letters to Congress urging support for the PTC. At the end of the webinar, Barb will be present this month's action, so please stay tuned for that. This webinar marks an exciting moment. This is the time where we transition from general education and general background webinars to the crucial state-based advocacy. We hope that in this webinar, we will equip you to engage and join our allies to advocate for implementation of strong energy efficiency and renewables such as wind and solar as main components of your state's clean power plans. Many of our allies have already been working on state implementation strategies. With the Clean Power Plan rule being finalized by the end of the month, we're now able to connect with our allies and work together to raise the health voice. Hopefully at the conclusion of the webinar, you will have the knowledge of how you can get involved. Tonight, we are delighted to have Travis Matson, Global Warming State Campaign Director for Environment America. Travis advocates for state and federal action to limit emissions of climate-changing pollution, working closely with the 29 state-based organizations that make up the Environment America Federation. Prior to working at Environment America, he worked for 11 years at the Frontier Group, a multi-issue think tank providing research and policy development support to Environment America. He also worked with US PIRG and other organizations in the Public Interest Network. He began his advocacy career in 2001 at the New Jersey Public Interest Research Group. He's worked on laying groundwork for the first ever national limits on global warming pollution from automobiles. He's native of Denver, Colorado, and a graduate from the University of Colorado. He let me know at the beginning of the when we were talking that he has degrees in biochemistry and developmental biology, and he wanted to become a doctor or healthcare provider. So I think it's very good that he's giving us his expertise tonight. I also want to give a big shout out to Travis because he's really been instrumental in providing us the information of who needs to be connected with who at the state level for clean power advocacy. So at this point, I'd like to invite Travis to come out and speak on the webinar.
Thanks for that introduction. So I'm Travis Madsen. I work at the state level with Environment America on our global warming campaigns, and I'm really excited to join you all tonight. In particular, I think that one of the reasons I'm doing this is what I learned in school about, a lot of the best advances that we've made in medicine are about preventing problems from developing in the first place. It's always easier to fix a problem before it starts than to deal with the consequences after things start going the wrong way. And I think that's particularly true when it comes to the environment, and especially with global warming. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about the campaign that a lot of the folks in the environmental community have been working on for the last couple of years, or longer in some cases, around the Clean Power Plan, and just give you a little background on what that is and what the opportunities are for us to shape how states move forward in implementing this plan. I think it's one of the best opportunities we have to take our energy system in a different direction and get rid of some of the dirty and dangerous sources of energy and replace them with things that will be better for our health and our future. So just real quickly, some background. Global warming is a problem. It's underway now. 2015 shaping up to be the hottest year in human history, outranking only 2014. And the scientists are telling us if we allow business as usual to continue, we're going to face multiple serious consequences, whether it's sea level rise inundating coastal communities, drought like the one we're seeing out in California, wildfires like the ones that are crisscrossing the West, and potential disruption of important parts of our civilization like our food supply and whatnot. And a lot of this is one of the main reasons why last month the Lancet put out an issue where they came to the conclusion that dealing with global warming is the greatest opportunity that we have to positively impact the health of people all across the world in this century. Next slide. So we know what to do to solve the problem. Global warming is a consequence of our use of fossil fuels. So scientists' best estimate is that all of the global warming we've seen since 1970 is because of humans, and in large part it's because of our use of fossil fuels. So in order to prevent the worst impacts of global warming, what we need to do in the United States is to cut our emissions by more than 80% below 1990 levels by the middle of the century. It's a pretty big, that represents a pretty big transformation in our energy system, but we have all the technologies that we need in order to do this. We've got wind energy, solar energy, geothermal, biomass, and we have the ability to electrify our vehicles and run them on clean power. So we know we can get there. The main obstacles that are in the way are political. Next slide. So if we look at where the pollution is coming from in the United States, electricity is the biggest source of it. So on the left there, you see our electricity system is responsible for about 31% of the global warming pollution that we emit nationally. And if we look at carbon dioxide alone, which is the main global warming pollutant, our electricity system is responsible for about 40% of those emissions. So in the near term, the best thing that we can do to take a big bite out of global warming is to clean up our electricity system. And I think that'll also help us with the transportation sector. I mean, there's a lot of ways you could imagine cleaning up cars and trucks, but I think the one that's most likely to work is switching those things over to electricity. And the cleaner we make our electricity grid, the easier it will be to eliminate the global warming pollution from the next biggest source, transportation. So this is where we come to the Clean Power Plan. The Clean Power Plan is the centerpiece of President Obama's Climate Action Plan, which he announced 2 years ago. It's a comprehensive approach to start getting rid of the pollutants that the U.S. emits that drive global warming. When it's finally implemented, the Clean Power Plan will be the single largest step forward that the U.S. has taken as a whole to fight global warming. So as the rule was originally drafted, it will cut about 30% of the global warming pollution that comes out of our electricity system. So on this slide here, that's represented by the wedge of the pie that's got the diagonal lines through it. So it's a really big step forward, and it's a huge accomplishment. It took advocates working for years and years and years, and a bunch of environmental groups working together, I think, generated about 8 million public comments over the last 5 or 6 years, urging the administration to take this step forward. I'm really glad that we're about to see the rule in its final form. Next slide. So a couple of things to know about the Clean Power Plan. Here's basically what I see happening over the next 5 years. In the first week of August of this year, I expect that EPA will announce the final rule. And at that point, the action will move to the states. So under the rule, all of the states will be charged with coming up with their own plan for how to reach the goals that the Clean Power Plan says they must reach for cleaning up the power plants that are in each state. There's also going to be a parallel action in Congress. So there's a lot of opponents of this rule in Congress, and one of the main ways that they are likely to try to undermine this rule is through what's called a Congressional Review Act. They have a 90-day window after the rule is finalized to try to pass one of these things through Congress. I expect we'll see one, and I expect that should it make it all the way to President Obama's desk, he will veto it. So there's an important role that advocates can play to help make sure that the congressional attack on the rule fails. And then in the states, what's going to be happening is that governors and their environmental and energy agencies will be developing state plans. So coming up with the actions that they're going to take to reach the rule. Some states may decline to produce their own state plan, and in that case, the federal government will produce a plan for them. States can request an extension of up to 2 years from summer 2016 for that plan. So if you have a state that proposes to work with neighboring states to kind of cooperate together and comply as a group, they could get an extension for their plan out to potentially summer 2018. So our window as advocates for influencing what is going to be in these plans starts now and extends potentially out into summer of 2018. And then by 2020, the compliance period starts, and states will have to start demonstrating to EPA that they're implementing their plan. Next slide. So the opposition really does not like this rule. I think that the chief sources of opposition are fossil fuel companies, in particular the coal industry, and then a set of anti-regulatory groups like the Heritage Foundation and Americans for Prosperity. But a lot of the opposition can be traced back to the fact that this rule is going to take a big bite out of coal in particular, and a lot of the coal companies are staring down the rule, wondering how they're going to stay in business. Next slide. So what they are doing to fight back is attacking the rule in Congress, like I just mentioned. They're filing lawsuits along with states that oppose the rule. And we're going to see a bunch of those after the rule is finalized. And then they're also attacking the rule at the state level. And at the state level, I think that the attacks remind me a lot of what happened around the Affordable Care Act. So with the Affordable Care Act, a lot of opponents were urging states to refuse to create their own health insurance exchanges or refuse to expand Medicaid or whatnot. So in this case, with the Clean Power Plan, Senator McConnell has been urging states to refuse to submit compliance plans, which would mean that EPA would have to make a plan for them. And you can imagine if enough states say, no way, we're not going to cooperate, that would undermine the rule politically. So other stuff that they are doing is introducing political obstacles. So a lot of state legislatures have been introducing bills that put hurdles in the way of governors being able to make a state plan for how to clean up the power plant. And then lastly, there have been legislation that would kind of close the door on the clean energy solutions that are what we're advocating for, because they're most closely aligned with what we need to do in the long term. Cut emissions, 80% or more by mid-century. The gas industry sees implementation of this plan as an opportunity to expand their market share, and they are being active in the legislature too to try to close the door to the clean energy solutions and suck up all the energy in the room themselves. So that brings us to our campaign. This is just kind of a sketch of what myself and a lot of the other groups that I work with have been doing, just to give you an idea of where things are at right now and how you might be able to plug into it. So at the national level, one of our main goals is to make sure that the narrative emerging from the states about what the Clean Power Plan is positive. So that means like maximizing the number of states that are engaging productively with EPA and minimizing the number of states that are saying, no way, we're not going to do this, or that are filing lawsuits. And then while we're doing this, we're trying to build power for the climate movement. So building infrastructure, building organization, getting people energized, because this is certainly not the last fight we're going to have on climate. There's going to be a lot of work to do in the future. Next. At the state level, our goals are to ensure that the state plans that we see are the strongest possible ones in the the biggest number of politically important states that we can pull off. And I guess by a strong state plan, what I mean here is one that maximizes the role of energy efficiency and renewables, the zero emission energy resources, and minimizes the role of gas or nuclear power. We can talk more about that later if you want to. And then the other thing that I'm looking at when I'm looking at a state plan is, so the Clean Power Plan sets goals for states, but those goals are just a minimum that states need to achieve. Ambitious states could do more than the Clean Power Plan requires, and in fact, states like California are already proposing to do much, much more than the Clean Power Plan requires them to do. And the more states that we can get to take an extra level of ambition, the better off we'll be. And then secondarily, in states where we're seeing these kinds of state legislative attacks, we are working to prevent them or neutralize them. Next slide. So I'm going to try to keep this as simple as I can, but I wanted to give you all a sense of what the picture looks like in the states that you might be working in. So this map shows the 5 different buckets of states that kind of divided the country into based on where the governors are at and where the state legislatures are at. The 5 categories are champ, which means the governor is a true believer on climate and is taking ambitious steps forward to implement the Clean Power Plan or take other actions that will help solve global warming. So those are all the states in green. It's typically the coastal states, some states in New England. The next category, which is yellow, is opportunity states. And those are states where there's a governor who generally is on the right side when it comes to the Clean Power Plan and is saying positive things, but faces significant levels of opposition in their state from the fossil fuel industry or from Americans for Prosperity or those types of opponent groups. And those governors are going to need help to stay in a good place. Those are the yellow states. Red states are states where, for whatever reason, the governors are not likely to say anything about the Clean Power Plan when it comes out in August. They may support it privately, or they may be slightly opposed to it in private. But these places are battlegrounds where the governors are not seeing any advantage to coming out and being public about the Clean Power Plan. Those are all the states in red. States in blue, I'm calling swing. I'm just making up these terms, by the way. What I mean by swing here is that the governors are opposed to the Clean Power Plan and are generally not being particularly helpful, or the state legislatures are putting up lots of roadblocks. But behind the scenes, there's positive things happening. So, for example, maybe the electric utilities in the state are like, hey, we should probably get our act together and prepare to comply with this rule because it's coming. And they're, privately advising their governors to get the program. So there's a chance that something good might be able to happen in the state. And then all of the gray states are opposition states where either the state legislature or the governor or the attorney general or all three have indicated opposition to the Clean Power Plan. So note which state your state is. And it's possible that these categories could change, depending on how things develop or, the new information we might be getting from the governor's office. It's conceivable that states can switch places. Next slide. So just a real brief, simple sketch of what the strategy is in each type of state. So in the CHAMP states, our goal is or the way we're going to win is by helping the governors look good by taking action. And then, when they do something good, we're going to amplify that on the national stage by cheerleading them along. So like when New York last week announced its 2015 energy plan, which is really good, I issued a press release and did a bunch of stuff on Twitter saying, yes, Governor Cuomo, good job. In the opportunity states, the key thing is to defend the governors against the opposition that's making life hard. So a lot of what we're doing there is attacking the opposition and highlighting the level of support that governors have in those states to help give them cover from the opposition. In the muted states, we're trying to make sure that the governors stay in the same place by, again, defending them from the voices in the state that hate the Clean Power Plan. In the swing states, we're trying to put pressure on the governors to move to a better place. And then in the opposition states, we're attacking the opposition and then highlighting local leadership like mayors, for example, that are on the right side. Just a real brief sketch of the strategy. Next. So here's what some of the tactics of the campaign look like and how it's organized. So the state implementation campaign is a state-driven thing. So organizations and leaders in each individual state that are familiar with the politics there are coming up with a specific strategy and the specific steps that they need to execute in order to win. So in states that are particularly politically important, we've organized like a climate table of organizations that are talking together about what to do. Some of the things that we're doing include winning the media narrative on the rule, meaning ideally we want a bunch of good news stories to come out, especially in late July and early August this year when the Clean Power Plan is going to be finalized. We're working to demonstrate support from a broad array of constituencies. And public health is a really important one. I'll talk about that on the next slide. We're working to generate positive comments from local elected officials. When the legislatures are in session, we're lobbying to prevent the legislatures from doing bad things. And in the same forum, we're promoting clean energy as a compliance tool, so both with the state legislatures and with the governor's offices and with their environmental and energy agencies that will be developing the specific compliance plan that the state will propose next summer. And then lobbying the elected officials. So what might you do if you were to get involved in one of these state level campaigns? That's on the next slide. Well, first let me talk about why it's important for you to get involved, and then I'll talk about some of the things you can do. So I think that the health voice is particularly critical as part of this campaign. It's one of the easiest ways for the public to wrap their head around what this is. So a lot of the news stories that came out when the Lancet came out with that issue a few weeks ago had quotes that are like, the doctors have diagnosed that the planet has a fever and given it a prescription to stop using fossil fuels, and that that kind of language and the whole concept of health is just something that people are concerned about and that they understand. And when they hear from a doctor or a nurse or someone who's a health provider, they tend to be trusted messengers in a way that I myself as an environmental advocate could never be. And then I think in particular, health messaging that's around kids is particularly powerful. It's an easy way to connect the moral dimensions of this and the instinct that people have to protect their kids to something that it's easy for them to think about. So your engagement's really important. Next slide. So here are some examples of ways that you might plug in if you were to join a climate table. First of all, you could help get the health message out into the media. Simple ways to do that include writing letters to the editor of newspapers, which Barb will tell you a little bit more about later in the presentation. You could sign on to or write an op-ed. You could participate as a speaker in a press event. You could join advocates at an editorial board meeting to go talk to the folks who write the editorials of the paper and urge them to write about the Clean Power Plan. If you have a social media channel that you use, you could tweet, and when you tag elected officials that are the targets. So in this case, the key targets are typically governors and members of the U.S. Senate. If you tag them in what you're saying, that helps. You could also bring the health voice directly to elected officials. So writing a letter, making a call is useful, or actually joining advocates for a face-to-face lobby meeting. Recruiting more health professionals to participate in the campaign is also a very powerful thing to do. So whether it's something as just recruiting colleagues to get onto a sign-on letter or turning folks out to attend an event, it's a powerful way to make a difference. And then I guess something that's coming up specifically here in the next couple of weeks is a day of action that is happening in a select set of states. In particular, well, we could talk about which states, but it's states that have Senate targets in particular. We're organizing a day of action on July 30th, and it'd be really cool if this day of action happened in other states as well. So in Colorado, what we're doing is having a picnic with a solar energy theme, and different states are doing different things, and the idea is to turn out a bunch of folks and get into the news, and then have opportunities there at the event for folks to tweet or call the elected officials that are going to be making the key decisions. So those are happening on the 30th or the 31st. right before the finalization of the Clean Power Plan. But that's just some examples of things that might be going on in your state. So I think that the next step, if you're in a state where you want to get plugged into your climate table, or folks in your state who are working actively on state implementation of the Clean Power Plan, PAUSE is going to serve as kind of the switchboard here, making sure that everyone's getting connected to the right people. So reach out to PAUSE, and we'll help you get connected to the climate activists that are doing state implementation of the Clean Power Plan in your state. Next slide. Or I guess maybe we should leave it here to write. People need to write that down. But we can go back to that slide. Anyway, I just wanted to close with this photo of President Obama, just because when I think about how far we've come on climate in the last, well, I guess my career's been 15 years. We've come a long way from the point where we couldn't even talk about global warming because it seemed like no one wanted to listen to us, to the point where the president is now announcing a climate action plan and advancing some real bold initiatives like the Clean Power Plan. And I think that this is all about momentum here, and the Clean Power Plan isn't going to be enough to solve this problem by itself, but by taking such a big bite out of the problem, I think we're going to find that we end up accomplishing much, much more, much faster than anyone's talking about right now. I think that it's one of the most worthy ways we could spend our time by making sure that, as President Obama said, that we're protecting the world that we're going to leave to our children. So that's my presentation. Happy to answer questions.
Great. Thank you, Travis, so much. Think you gave us a wealth of information, and yes, folks that need to be connected to their state roundtables or to allies in their state that are working on the Clean Power Plan, if you can just email me or call me, and I will try to connect you so that you can start working as well. At this point, we're opening it up to questions and comments and discussion. At the moment, I have a hand up from Karen Ringler in Wisconsin. Karen, I am going to unmute you so you would be able to talk. So go ahead and ask your question. Karen, are you there? I have unmuted you. Okay.
If that doesn't work, maybe we could try the chat box.
Yes. I was going to say that you can either write a question or the chat. Either box, I will be looking at it. So let me know. I do have a question. Karen, if you haven't looked at it, there's a box that says question and one that says chat. Go ahead and write it there. At the moment, I do have a question from Mike Goody, maybe it is. Is there a hashtag for any social media post that we make?
Yeah, so everything related to the Clean Power Plan, we're using the hashtag #ActOnClimate. So ActOnclimate. And if you get onto Twitter and search for that hashtag, you'll find a whole bunch of lively discussion about the Clean Power Plan.
Barbara Warren in Arizona has a question. What are the names of the coalition organization that most states are working with?
I don't know if they have public names. So the folks who are leading these climate tables are different in every state. Sometimes it's the state chapter of a national group like Environment America or Sierra Club or whatnot. Sometimes it's a local organization that only exists in like one state or a regional group of states, and it's there's a lot of states. So I figured the easiest thing to do would be to
Fando is asking whether Pennsylvania is one of the states with a climate table, and I'll let you answer that, and I might pipe in later.
Yeah, absolutely. Pennsylvania's climate table involves a bunch of different organizations, including Penn Environment, which is kind of leading the table, and then Penn Future, Keystone Energy Efficiency Alliance, and a bunch of related organizations. And I think that Pennsylvania is one of the most politically important states. So it's in that opportunity category where there's a governor who is in the right place, but is facing significant opposition from the coal industry and from both parties of Democrats and Republicans in the state legislature. And I think that we're going to have to do a lot of hard work in Pennsylvania to make sure that the governor has enough political space to move forward with a good state implementation plan. So yes, Pennsylvania is a critical state.
Yes, and at this point, getting a lot of questions about how do I plug in with my state or how to connect with my state. Give me a call at 202-587-5251, and my number will come up again at the end of the webinar. You will see it up there, or email me, and my email will be there as well. And I will connect you to those folks. We do have the names and contacts for many of the states, and we're working on getting them for others.
And then just to add to that, there's so many different levels at which folks could get involved. And I know that a lot of health professionals are pressed for time, but simple things like signing letters makes a difference, all the way on up to the more complicated things like, helping to organize an event or whatever. There's a wide range of things you could do. So I encourage all of you to, to take a look at what folks are doing and see where you can help.
Right. And, also to help out, we will be putting up this kind of information up on our website, and very state-specific. People can contact me. They can check it out. It'll all be there. At this point, I want to sort of call on Sarah via Maryland. Sarah, I am going to unmute you in a second here once I find you. I had you up. Here we are. I'm muting Sarah. And Sarah, she wants to have a little conversation about what she's doing in her state in Maryland, connecting on Clean Power Plan and what the plans are, so that folks can get some idea of one state's actions. Sarah, can you speak? Can you hear? I have unmuted you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sometimes my own headset mutes me. Okay, so this is Sarah Via from Maryland, and I'm intrigued as to why Maryland is in the muted category. I'm guessing it's because we have a new Republican governor who we don't really know how he's going to behave with respect to what Martin O'Malley did previously, but we do have a law in effect called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act, which is what got us into RGGI and has launched some of the energy efficiency things we're doing. And nobody really knows what Governor Hogan is going to do about that. But the state in general, I think, is fairly positive. So, Travis, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, it's exactly what you just said. It's the fact that Governor Hogan is a wild card. And,
yeah.
I don't think we can count on him to automatically be in the right place and say.
Oh, I don't either.
About the Clean Power Plan, and
I'm just hoping we can count on him, yeah, not to oppose it.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to do anything bad either necessarily, and that's why I put him in the muted category. But like I said earlier, it's conceivable that we might get more information or something might happen that would change how we rank the state. But certainly Maryland is a crucial state, and one that I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to move the ball forward.
Yeah, there are a lot of people working on this, and we've been trying to figure out how to get involved in the SIP process. I mean, we all know that belonging to RGGI is going to take care of a lot of the SIP. I mean, a lot of it's going to be worked out through that.
Yeah,
but we're hoping that we can get more efficiency programs going in Maryland. It's disappointing that our state is the only state that's not putting most of its RGGI money toward efficiency and renewables. And I don't know how much movement there's going to be able to be on that. But I did find out last night that when the Maryland Department of the Environment gets together to work on the SIP plan, they'll have some stakeholder meetings, and we can go and hear what they're talking about and have some input there. And the other opportunity that we have is we have the Maryland Climate Commission is in action, and they're reviewing the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Act and trying to figure out, should we do more, how much have we accomplished, where should we go, and they're going to make a recommendation in November to the governor and the legislature. And I went to a meeting with them last night, and I was positive about it. I didn't expect to be, but it seems like they're doing a very careful job and they're asking the right questions. So we have an opportunity to influence them too in terms of what they put in their report to the governor. So, for example, I was talking to one of the commissioners last night, and I started to rave on about energy efficiency, and he said, "Well, yeah, maybe that's something we should put in the report and stress as a recommendation." So, we do have a lot of opportunities to interact with these folks, and there's a huge network of people. There's a Maryland Climate Coalition, and there's a lot of people involved in that. So it's pretty active.
Fantastic. And I definitely like to talk to you more about ways that we might be able to work together to pull Governor Hogan in the right direction.
Yeah, me too. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I have one question. They're wanting you, Travis, to repeat the Twitter hashtag, the social media hashtag.
It's Act on Climate. So hashtag ACTONCLIMATE. Act on Climate. It's a nice hashtag because it fits into sentences.
Great. I have a question here. A lot of utility companies seem to be planning to transition off of coal into natural gas. We know that natural gas gives off methane, and methane is 84 to 86 times more potent as a global warming gas than carbon dioxide. What are the best arguments against natural gas for moving the public?
That's a tough question. Well, I mean, I think for moving the public, I mean, a lot of the public is already on the right side. So if you look at polling data, I don't know any state-specific poll data, but national polling data, the energy source that has the most public support is solar with like 80-something%, and then wind at like 70-something%. And then lower down the list, you've got gas, and then lower down the list is nukes, and then lower down that list is coal. So I think the key thing is to, mobilize folks that will speak up for those opinions, before they're elected officials. And I think there's good health reasons that you can help articulate for why gas is not as good as zero-emission energy sources. And, a lot of the soot and smog arguments I think are important to keep in mind in this context. And then if states are going to take what we actually need to do to stop global warming, the worst impacts of global warming, they're going to take that seriously, then immediately you have to realize that investing in gas is just investing in infrastructure that we're going to have to shut down, throw away before its useful lifetime is up, and there's a pretty big economic cost to having to do that. That argument might be effective maybe not amongst the general public, but more of the policymaker types who are concerned about cost.
This is Barb Gottlieb from PSR. Travis, I just wanted to underscore what you said a moment ago about bringing in the health argument in regard to natural gas. I think that a lot of people, although they might like the idea of solar, they like the idea of wind, they might be concerned that those things aren't immediately available, and they'll say, yeah, but isn't natural gas clean? And I think that there are two really important fronts where we need to fight back and say, no, it's not. It's not at all. And the first, of course, is fracking, because the process of extracting natural gas using hydraulic fracturing technologies is laced with toxics that are contaminating the air and contaminating the water. A lot of that contamination is very localized. It may not affect everybody, but we really have to get the word out about it. But there's also another health component to natural gas that you made reference to, of course, and that's methane, and as the question was saying, its potency as a greenhouse gas. In the short term, methane is far more of a powerful greenhouse gas than is carbon dioxide, and it's exactly that short term, the next 20 years, when we really need to be dialing back the greenhouse gases and preserving a cooler climate. So if we invest in that natural gas infrastructure that you were talking about, not only is there an economic problem with it, but it means there'll be a real lot of momentum behind the idea of continuing burning methane, burning natural gas, and leaking methane into the environment and increasing global warming. So the natural gas option is a bad one for us, and we really need to make clear that from a fracking point of view and from a climate point of view, it will bring all kinds of grave health impacts.
Thanks for that additional answer. That's right on target.
Right. At this point, given the time, I'm going to move us into the action part of the agenda. If anybody has any questions that they still would like to put in, just email them to me, and I will, with Travis and Barb, get them answered. This time I'd like to introduce Barb Gottlieb. Barb, do you want to go ahead and present tonight's action?
I sure do, Paz. Thanks very much. So it's me again. That was just me a moment ago talking about methane. This really is an exciting moment. We're really very excited about the Clean Power Plan being released within weeks. And we want to be sure that when it comes out, or as the press begins to talk about it coming out, there is a positive kind of surge that's visible or audible to people all across the country to let everybody know what you know, which is that this is the best opportunity facing our country at this time to take a real big bite out of global warming and climate change gases. So what we're suggesting as this month's action is that you write a letter to the editor. The point of the letter will be very straightforward: why you want your state to enact the Clean Power Plan by increasing its reliance on renewable energy sources and on energy efficiency. I'll talk to you in just a moment about how you might write that letter, but let me just acknowledge that for a lot of people, writing a letter to the editor isn't easy. It doesn't come natural. It may not be something you're comfortable with. So I really would encourage everybody to listen closely for those parts of what I'm going to say that might really work for you. A good letter to the editor is short, to the point, and it comes from the heart. So really look inside yourself, see what really moves you, what matters to you, what matters to your community, what matters in terms of your family, maybe even your own health. What matters to you is likely to matter to other people. And so feel free to use that as kind of the framework for writing your article. Hello?
We can
still
hear
there?
you.
Okay,
Yes.
thanks. One of the pieces of advice you're always given when you write to the editor is that letters to the editor are addressing your local community. So when you write your letter, talk about it, talk about the issue, talk about climate change and the Clean Power Plan in terms of what's affecting your community now. And for a lot of us, it's the weather. It may be, we could go back to the previous slide, please. It may be drought in California or the Southwest, or it could be flooding in parts of the South and parts of the Middle West, wildfires in Canada and in Washington State, where I hear that the rainforest is burning. I mean, you might be sick of the weather. Everybody talks about it. That, in this case, is an advantage. So that can be your jumping off point. If you want to focus on something a little bit more positive, you may be in a state that is advancing in clean energy or making policy advances, committing itself to increasing its reliance on renewable energy or energy efficiency, like the state of California is doing. But again, look for a local hook. Another thing we really encourage you to do is talk about climate change as a health issue. Travis referred to the Lancet article. If you've been keeping up with PSR, you know that we were involved in the release of the Lancet here in the United States. We're very excited about it. It's a great source of information. So we've created a writing guide for how to write a letter to the editor that gives you access to some of the key points in this Lancet report. You'll find it on the PSR website at the rather lengthy URL on the screen. And tomorrow you can look for an email from Paz where she'll send out this same information. You'll have it electronically. It'll be a lot easier to find the health information and have these really easy kind of 1, 2, 3 steps for writing your letter to the editor. Next slide, please. A few more tips about writing a letter. Keep it short. Just like that. It really gets people's attention, and most newspapers have a policy that they will only accept letters of a certain number of words. And that word count may be 200 or 250 words. You really have to make a single point, make it cogently, and then stop. Get local. That's what I was just saying a moment ago. And be timely. Try to refer to something that's in the newspaper, in the newspaper that you're writing to. And in fact, you might even want to cite by date and by headline an article that you're responding to. So I know that writing a letter to the editor isn't everybody's favorite activity, even for those of us who might enjoy it. I know I wrote a letter to the Washington Post just recently, and I put a lot of thought and effort into writing it, making my points, polishing it up. It didn't get published. That happens commonly. Newspapers often get far more letters than they can publish, but just seeing the flow of letters is something that the newspaper keeps track of. And if they see that people are focused on the Clean Power Plan, looking forward to reading about it, and associating it with health, that makes it more likely that they will write about those topics. So your letter, even if it doesn't get published, can actually serve a purpose. So please do write. Once you've written an LTE, shoot an email to Paz. Here's her email address again, and just say, Paz, I sent a letter to the, Rockville Gazette, whatever. And then if it gets published, fantastic, that's really great. Again, be in touch with Paz, send her a link to your letter, and we'll try and get it up on our website. So I think that's about it in terms of the letters to the editor. Paz, thanks very much.
Thank you, Barb. This concludes tonight's webinar, but before we go, I want to remind you that you can join us next month on Wednesday, August 19th from 8 to 9 p.m. again for the next Clean Energy webinar, be a Clean Power Plan, Progress and Challenges in the States. That webinar, we're going to go to deeper depth. We're going to probe how the Clean Power Plan has the challenges and victories. We're going to look and see what Travis had been talking about, but much deeper into what strategies have worked in different states, what are the major challenges, and what's the best messaging for the Clean Power Plan advocacy. Hope you can join us. Want to thank again Travis for giving us the time and also for preparing such a good presentation. Be on the lookout tomorrow for the action alert email with the information about how to write your LTE. And once again, if you look there, my name and email and phone number is there, as well as Barb's email. But if you need information on the state tables, contact me. Or if you want more information on how to write an LTE or how to send it, I'll be glad to answer your questions. For now, I want to thank everyone and wish everyone a good night. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.